Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi asks NITI Aayog to prepare an investment-friendly charter for attracting investments. Also urges states to develop tourist destination for visitors. India calls out Pakistan's hypocrisy at the UNSC, says India has endured decades of Islamabad-sponsored terror attacks, slams Pakistan's disinformation on Indus Waters Treaty. A powerful message of India's unity and its resolve against terrorism echoes through Russia, Japan, Bahrain, the UAE, other all-party delegations en route to the US, Qatar. Ukraine and Russia continue their largest ever prisoner swap amid air assaults. Moscow to outline its conditions for a long-term peace agreement after the prisoner exchange gets over. And Shubman Gill is named India's new test captain for the England tour. Rishabh Pant announced his deputy. Sai Sudarshan, Karun Nair named in the 18-member squad. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired the 10th Governing Council meeting of the NITI Aayog, focusing on Viksit Rajya for Viksit Bharat at 2047. That's developed states for developed India at 2047. Now, with states as key partners, the vision of a developed India gains momentum. Digital growth and a booming startup ecosystem signal a transformative era ahead. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya has filed this report.
Viksit Bharat at the rate 2047, not just a vision, but a national mission. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired the 10th Governing Council meeting of NITI Aayog at Bharat Mandapam, New Delhi, held on the theme Viksit Rajya for Viksit Bharat. At the rate 2047, the meeting served as a platform for the centre and states and union territories to align on strategies to achieve the vision of a developed India by 2047. Chief Ministers and Lieutenant Governors discussed how states can act as key drivers in building a Viksit Bharat.
The first item in the agenda was Viksit Rajya for Viksit Bharat. Viksit Bharat Hetu Viksit Rajya. The whole idea is, in the last Governing Council, the 9th Governing Council, held just after the election in July, the Prime Minister had given a call for all states to prepare their own state visions, making their states Viksit Bihar, Viksit Odisha, Viksit Madhya Pradesh, so that they have visions which will then aggregate into a larger vision for the nation.
India is on a transformative journey. In just 10 years, India has risen from the fragile 5 to the top 5 economies of the world with a GDP of $4.19 trillion.
The country is at a takeoff stage where it can grow very, very rapidly, as has been done by many countries in the past. So this was the context. Given this, as well as the demographic dividend that India is actually blessed with for the next 20-25 years, that we can grow rapidly, the Prime Minister gave a call that all states to prepare a vision document at their level. And this is already visible in the growth of India. We are the 4th largest economy as I speak. We are a $4 trillion economy as I speak. And this is not my data, this is IMF data. India today is larger than Japan.
Digital India is bringing governance closer to 140 crore citizens, and as the world's 3rd largest startup ecosystem, marks the dawn of a new era for New India. Tapas Bhattacharya's report for DD India.
India ripped through Pakistan's disinformation campaign at the UN on the Indus Waters Treaty, asserting that Islamabad violated its spirit by inflicting 3 wars and thousands of terror attacks on India that seek to hold hostage lives of civilians, religious harmony and economic prosperity. We have a report.
India yet again called out Pakistan's grossly hypocritical behavior at the UN Security Council, saying a nation which makes no distinction between terrorists and civilians has no credentials to speak about protecting civilians. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Parvatneni Harish, detailed India's extraordinary patience and magnanimity in enduring decades of Pakistan-sponsored cross-border terror.
Pakistan has repeatedly used a civilian cover to advance the cause of terrorism. We just recently saw senior government, police and military officials pay respects at the funeral of noted terrorists targeted by Operation Sindoor. A nation that makes no distinction between terrorists and civilians has no credentials to speak about protecting civilians. There was intentional targeting of places of worship, including gurudwaras, temples and convents, as well as medical facilities. To preach at this body after such behavior is grossly hypocritical. Let us be clear. Protection of civilians should not serve as an argument for protection of UN-designated terrorists.
India also ripped through Pakistan's disinformation at the UN on the Indus Water Treaty. India's permanent representative to the UN, Parvatneni Harish, said, India entered into the Indus Water Treaty 65 years ago in good faith. Pakistan violated the spirit of the treaty by inflicting 3 wars and thousands of terror attacks on India. In the last 4 decades, more than 20,000 Indian lives have been lost in terror attacks. The most recent being dastardly terror attack in Pahalgam. India formally asked Pakistan to discuss modifications to the treaty on several occasions in the past 2 years. However, Pakistan has continued to block consistently any changes to this infrastructure and any modifications of the provisions.
In these 65 years, far-reaching fundamental changes have taken place not only in terms of escalating security concerns through cross-border terror attacks, but also growing requirements for producing clean energy, climate change and demographic change. Technology for dam infrastructure has transformed to ensure safety and efficiency of operations and water use. Some of the old dams are facing serious safety concerns. However, Pakistan has continued to block consistently any changes to this infrastructure and any modifications to the provisions which is permissible under the treaty. In fact, in 2012, terrorists even attacked the Tulbul navigation project in Jammu and Kashmir.
India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Parvatneni Harish, said that in these circumstances, Government of India has decided to put the treaty in abeyance. The message to Pakistan is crystal clear. In the words of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, blood and water cannot flow together. Goodwill and friendship cannot coexist with Pakistan's unrelenting support for terrorism. Till the time Pakistan takes credible steps to abjure terrorism on its soil, it is only natural and well within India's right to hold the treaty in abeyance. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar shared his remarks on how India and Germany can upgrade their ties as the two countries mark 25 years of their strategic partnership. Jaishankar, who is visiting Germany, made these remarks during an interaction at the German Council on Foreign Relations and acknowledged German support to India after the dastardly Pahalgam terror attack.
When it comes to terrorism, I think today, there's virtually no country which would say, I approve of what is done. Or no country which would say, I don't condemn what was done. And if I were to say, I have the right to defend myself, my people, I have the right to secure my country, I think much of the world would agree with me. And I'm happy to say that Germany does. We are very encouraged both by the very early condemnation of the terrorist attack, as well as the very clear message which we got on the 7th of May and again today from Minister Wadeful, that Germany recognizes India's right to defend itself against terrorism.
The External Affairs Minister offered suggestions on collaboration in several areas to take the ties ahead, listing down the challenges which the modern world has brought forth, such as the chips war, climate change, poverty, damage done by the COVID pandemic. External Affairs Minister expressed confidence in India-Germany ties to face these challenges. He also expressed optimism for trade ties to grow between the two countries and an FTA with the EU that would help in that regard.
India and Germany are part of a group called G4, which has been trying to press for a much more contemporary United Nations. So there is a global agenda. There should be an effort for deeper conversations. We need to build up a stronger bilateral collaboration. And much of that, in my view, can be achieved or can be furthered by an expeditious conclusion of an India-European free trade agreement. A free trade agreement in today's context, particularly because for the European Union, in many ways it has been a very key pillar of its foreign policy engagements. To conclude an FTA agreement has a significance beyond trade, beyond investment, beyond economics.
The sixth group of all-party delegation led by NCP-SCP Member of Parliament Supriya Sule has departed from New Delhi. The delegation will visit Qatar, Egypt, Ethiopia and South Africa to convey India's unwavering resolve to combat terrorism demonstrated during Operation Sindoor. A powerful message of unity and resolve echoed through Tokyo on Saturday as a high-level all-party Indian delegation wrapped up a successful three-day visit focused on strengthening India's global narrative against terrorism. Led by Sanjay Kumar Jha, the delegation energized diplomatic community engagement, drawing an enthusiastic response from the Indian diaspora.
सरकार भी और देश भी अब चाहता है enough is enough. No time has come कि हम लोगों को once and for इसको सेटल तो करना है और इसीलिए सरकार ने इस बार मैसेज भी दिया है, प्रिपेयर भी है, कोई बात होगा तो देश भी और हम सब लोग इस मुद्दे पर एक है, पूरा देश एक है और सारे हमारे जो पार्टी हैं वो सब लोग हम लोग एक हैं.
The delegation's mission to amplify India's united stand against terrorism clearly struck a chord with the diaspora applauding the initiative and the rare show of political unity it represents.
This time the action is more decisive, going to the crossing the border and going and attacking to the exact in precision to the terror camps is exemplary. And I think we want to follow this pattern going forward. And all the member of parliaments who have visited here, they have brought this in a very precise way, bringing all the clarity to the Indian community here. And we are taking this message to spread it across to our communities, also to our friends, international friends, that this is something what India is about.
We didn't have enough information about our country position as such. And I think from now we know that what we should take it to our other Japanese fellows and how should we communicate this message as part of India. I think that's an excellent initiative.
So India continues its global campaign against Pakistan-sponsored terrorism with all-party delegations engaged in diplomatic efforts and visiting key countries to spread the message of zero tolerance against terrorism. The all-party delegation led by BJP's Member of Parliament, Baijant Panda, reached Bahrain earlier today, where they were received by Ambassador Vinod K. Jacob at the airport. The group, including MPs from the BJP, AIMIM, and other political parties, along with former diplomats like Harshvardhan Shringla, will also be visiting Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Algeria. Later, the all-party delegation led by BJP MP Baijant Panda arrived at the Indian Embassy in Manama, the capital of Bahrain. You're watching DD India Newshour, still to come on the show. The United States of America lifts first sanctions on Syria following Trump's announcement. Lebanese head to municipal polls in war-torn southern Lebanon.
When we think of technology, we often think of something flashy or futuristic. But the real game changers, they're quieter, rooted in research, shaped by problem solvers, and already a part of our lives.
Young tribal people, I would call them as they are the heartbeats of our jungles, who know every single point in the jungle where the elephants are, where they will go, what season they will migrate.
This happened because of a self-help group. But since I've received the drone, the negative attitude of people has turned much more positive.
The beautiful thing about the lithium is the lithium that you recover stays the lithium, and you can reuse it over and over again.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I am Tanvi Taneja. US President Donald Trump's recent remarks on the Harvard University and its enrollment of international students has sparked controversy. While criticizing the university's finances and academic standards, the president's comments come amid a legal battle over Harvard's ability to host foreign students. DD India's Syed Absarul Hasan has more on this developing story.
A very big announcement today.
US President Donald Trump sparked controversy over Harvard University and its enrollment of international students during an executive order signing in the Oval Office. Trump criticized Harvard's financial practices, questioning why the country continues to provide billions in funding to a university with a $52 billion endowment.
Billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard. How ridiculous is that? Billions. And they have $52 billion as an endowment. They have $52 billion. And this country is paying billions and billions of dollars and then gives student loans and they have to pay back the loans. So Harvard's going to have to change its ways.
Trump also expressed doubts about the academic preparedness of some foreign students, highlighting reports that some Harvard students require remedial math classes.
A lot of the people need remedial math. Did you see that? Where the students can't add 2 and 2 and they go to Harvard. So why would they get in? How can somebody that can't add or...
The president's comments come amid a legal challenge to his administration's attempt to revoke Harvard's certification to enroll international students under the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. However, a federal judge has temporarily blocked this move, issuing a restraining order that halts the government's decision to strip Harvard of its ability to host foreign students on visas. The ruling maintains Harvard's enrollment rights for the time being, pending further court proceedings. Nicole Anslover, a presidential historian and associate professor at Florida Atlantic University, says the potential impact on Harvard is immense since about a quarter of Harvard's student body comes from outside the U.S.
Faculty at Harvard are very concerned, talking about how the revocation of that amount of funds, what that's going to do is essentially shut down some of their labs. We've talked about how universities in America are vital for all kinds of research, but particularly scientific research that leads to medical discoveries, advances in technology.
The head of Germany's Harvard Scholarship Foundation has termed the termination of Harvard's Student and Exchange Visitor Program as a huge tragedy.
Yeah, that's a huge tragedy. You know, we ran, like we do every 2 years, we ran a huge competition with over 400 schools involved all over Germany. We have chosen the best and the brightest from those who applied. We have chosen people from amazing backgrounds, people who were not born with a golden spoon in their mouth, but people who really found their way through education to academic excellence at the age of 16, 17.
As this legal and political battle unfolds, questions remain about the future of international students at Harvard and other US universities and the impact of potential changes on American higher education and immigration policy. Syed Absarul Hasan's report for DD India.
US has lifted first sanctions on Syria following Trump's announcement. Now, Syria has welcomed this decision and hoped that this will pave the way for rebuilding the war-torn country. Our next report examines what the lifting of sanctions mean for Syria, as well as the history of such sanctions in the past and the road ahead.
Syria on Saturday hailed Trump administration's decision to lift sanctions as Washington looks to open a new chapter in its relations with Damascus. Syrian Foreign Ministry in a statement said, and I quote, "The Syrian Arab Republic welcomes the decision from the American government to lift the sanctions imposed on Syria and its people for long years. The US Treasury Department said that the sanctions relief extends to Syria's new government with conditions that the country will not provide safe haven for terrorist organizations and ensure security for religious and ethnic minorities. US President Donald Trump surprised many with his announcement of the new policy on a Gulf tour earlier this month, during which he shook hands with Syria's jihadist turned interim president Ahmed al-Shara. Trump said he wanted to give the war-torn country's new rulers a chance at greatness after the removal of longtime ruler Bashar al-Assad in December.
Likewise, in Syria, which has seen so much misery and death, there is a new government that will hopefully succeed in stabilizing the country and keeping peace. That's what we want to see in Syria. And I'm very pleased to announce that Secretary Marco Rubio will be meeting with the new Syrian foreign minister in Turkey later this week.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the waiver would facilitate the provision of electricity, energy, water, and sanitation and enable a more effective humanitarian response across Syria. Let us have a look at the history of US sanctions on Syria. The US has imposed sanctions on Syria since 1979, initially due to terrorism concerns. Sanctions expanded in 2004 under former President George W. Bush, citing Syria's occupation of Lebanon and alleged support for terrorism and weapons development. After Syria's conflict began in 2011, restrictions intensified, targeting the Assad government, financial transactions, oil imports, and more. In 2019, President Trump's Caesar Act extended sanctions to third-party entities to hinder reconstruction. In 2025, President Biden's Executive Order 14142 updated previous measures, maintaining sanctions on individuals threatening Syria's stability while removing references to Turkey. The US move to lift sanctions on Syria could play an important role in its reconstruction efforts. Bureau Report, DD India.
Lebanese cast their votes in the municipal elections at polling stations in Nabatea district in southern part of the country. Despite a rise in Israeli strikes in recent days, Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem called on supporters to go out to the polls and secure a resounding victory. For Hezbollah, the local vote is more important than ever, coinciding with mounting calls for its disarmament and continued Israeli airstrikes, as many of its Shiite Muslim constituents still suffer the repercussions of the conflict. 3 rounds of voting was already held this month and it has gone well for the Iran-backed group. In the south, many races won't be contested, handing Hezbollah and its allies early wins. The UN Secretary-General's envoy for Cyprus, Maria Angela Huelguin, met President Nikos Christodoulidis on Saturday and is scheduled to meet Turkish Cypriot leader Ersin Tatar on May 26th. Maria Angela Huelguin has said that her week-long stay in Cyprus aims to generate tangible results ahead of a July meeting in Geneva that will bring together UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot leaders, along with top diplomats from Greece, Turkey and the UK.
We have to work hard this month until the next meeting with the Secretary General in July and to have some results in all the agreement that they had in the meeting in March. That was a very good atmosphere. The Secretary General continued to push for the Cyprus file, and I'm pleased to be here, and I am going to work very hard to have something concrete for July.
On to the Russia-Ukraine conflict now. Russia and Ukraine each exchanged 307 of their service personnel on Saturday on the second day of a prisoner exchange that, when completed, is said to be the largest such swap in 3 years' war between the two countries. Zelensky said that in just these 2 days, 697 people have been brought home, and one should expect the process to continue on Sunday. He also said that among those who returned today are warriors from their armed forces, the State Border Guard Service and the National Guard of Ukraine. While Russian Defense Ministry posted on Saturday a short video showing dozens of Russian prisoners of war released by Ukraine embarking a coach in an unidentified location in Belarus. The service personnel were also seen posing for pictures and shouting hooray. US President Donald Trump has suggested the prisoner swap, which would see 1,000 prisoners released on each side over 3 days, could herald a new phase in stop-start efforts to negotiate a peace deal between Moscow and Kiev. Saturday's swap was announced by Russia's defense ministry and separately by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in a post on social media platform Telegram. The first part of the exchange took place on Friday when Russia and Ukraine each released 390 prisoners, including 120 civilians, and said that they would free more in the coming days. But air assaults continue. Russia on early Saturday attacked Ukraine's capital Kiev with drones and missiles, triggering fires, strewing debris throughout the city, forcing many Kiev residents to take shelter in underground subway stations. Ukrainian Air Force said that Russia fired 14 ballistic missiles on Kiev. The city's military administration said that at least 15 people were killed in the airstrikes, and the explosions led to fires in several places across the city. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Moscow is blocking a ceasefire deal to end the war and urged more international sanctions on Russia. This nighttime attack came hours after Russia and Ukraine began a major prisoner exchange that was agreed by both the sides in Istanbul last week. Meanwhile, Russian forces continued its operation in several directions in Ukraine. In its daily briefing, the Russian Defense Ministry said that Russian forces brought under control 6 settlements in Sumy, Kharkiv and Donetsk between May 17th to 23rd. The ministry also said that Russian air defense systems intercepted guided bombs and more than 1,000 drones of the Ukrainian forces. Pope Leo XIV held his first audience with Vatican City employees and their families and expressed gratitude for their service, recalling his 2 years at the Vatican as prefect of the dicastery for bishops. Nearly 5,000 people work in the Vatican, including Curia employees and Holy See workers. On Sunday, the Pope is expected to visit Rome's City Hall and take possession of the Basilica of St. John Lateran and the Basilica of St. Mary Major.
Everyone can be a builder of unity with their attitudes towards colleagues, overcoming the inevitable misunderstandings of patience and humility, putting themselves in the shoes of others, avoiding prejudices, and also with a good dose of humor, as Pope Francis taught us.
On to Africa now. Air Force chiefs and commanders from across Africa gathered in Lagos on Friday for a showcase of military might as the continent grapples with mounting security challenges. The 4th African Air Forces Forum, hosted by Nigeria, brought together top brass from nations including Burkina Faso, Rwanda and Tunisia to discuss strategies for enhancing air superiority in the fight against terrorism and regional instability. The meeting comes as many West African countries, and in particular Nigeria, face escalating threats from militant groups and internal conflicts, putting pressure on air forces to bolster their capabilities and coordinate efforts across borders.
African problems really requires African solution. And this is the first time in the continent that the chief of air staffs, all the countries in Africa and beyond, will come together to begin to see how to cross-fertilize ideas, how to build synergy, to be able to face the emerging threats, not only trans-border crimes, but other terrorist challenges in the continent.
You're watching NITI India Newshour, still to come on the show. A discussion with our expert on India calling out Pakistan's hypocrisy at the UNSC. Monsoon arrives in India. The earliest onset over Indian mainland since 2009 hits Kerala 8 days early.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Tanvi Taneja. A quick reminder of the headlines we're tracking at this hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi asks NITI Aayog to prepare an investment-friendly charter for attracting investments. Also urges states to develop one tourist destination for visitors at par with global standards. A powerful message of India's unity and its resolve against terrorism echoes through Russia, Japan, Bahrain and the UAE, other all-party delegations en route to the US, Qatar. Ukraine and Russia continue their largest ever prisoner swap amid air assaults. Moscow to outline its conditions for a long-term peace agreement after the prisoner exchange gets over. And going back to one of our top stories, India ripping through Pakistan's disinformation at the UN on the killing of civilians and on the Indus Waters Treaty. And to discuss this, we have with us TCA Raghavan, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan. Namaskar, sir. India has asserted at the UNSC that Pakistan has flagrantly violated the spirit of the Indus Water Treaty by inflicting 3 wars. And it also said that thousands of terror attacks on India, this also, this is also how it has violated the spirit of the treaty. Yet India has shown incredible patience and magnanimity and abiding by the treaty. Your comments on this enormous gap between India's big-heartedness and Pakistan's shocking duplicity and unprovoked aggression?
Well, thank you for inviting me. As is well known, the Indus Waters Treaty was intended to create an architecture of peace and cooperation between India and Pakistan. And while the treaty worked well in its technical aspects for a long period of time, it certainly failed in the larger venture of creating a peaceful bilateral relationship between India and Pakistan, largely because of the kind of foreign policy which Pakistan adopted towards India, and in the last quarter century, its policy of using terrorism as an instrument of state policy. Apart from the terrorism factor, Pakistan also showed an unwillingness to work the Indus Waters Treaty in the spirit in which it was designed, because in the end, the aim of the treaty was to create a ecosystem of cooperation between the two countries where the Indus waters were concerned. And the principal approach of Pakistan was to object to each and every Indian project which were within the framework of the treaty. And this led to delays in project implementation and also created a certain amount of bad blood in treaty implementation. So over the past decade, the treaty was under a great deal of stress and strain. And of course, the major terrorist attack last month in Pahalgaon proved to be the final straw which snapped India's patience and has led to the treaty being placed in abeyance.
Sir, India also stated at the UNSC that Pakistan has consistently sought to block India's attempts to improve dam infrastructure to ensure greater safety of people and efficiency of water use. But Pakistan has blocked all such efforts, clearly showing its ill intentions. Would you agree that this is yet another instance of Pakistan's ill will towards India?
I think in part it is Pakistan's ill will, and in part it is a extreme lower riparian paranoia and anxiety which is totally groundless. Because what Pakistan objected to was project designs based on latest technologies. The treaty is now over 60 years old, and obviously technology doesn't remain stagnant or stationary. Our effort was to build new projects which were more efficient, which would yield more energy, which would have less collateral consequences, and use the latest technologies. And Pakistan, over the past decade, we saw a persistent pattern of blocking any such project which tried to utilize new technologies. And this led to severe strain on the working of the treaty. And I don't want to go into details, but essentially this whole dispute resolution stress which arose in the treaty was because of Pakistan's effort to block the use of new technologies in different projects.
Okay, India has also observed at the UNSC that senior government and police and military officials of Pakistan were seen paying their respects at the funeral of top terrorists killed in Operation Sindoor. Does the world need any further proof of Pakistan's sponsorship of terror?
I think most countries have a pretty good understanding of where Pakistan stands with these different terrorist groups. It was not so long ago that it was placed on the grey list of the FATF and faced numerous economic restrictions and sanctions. Most countries have a pretty good experience and understanding of Pakistan's long and somewhat bitter interface with terrorist groups. So I think the Indian position with regard to dealing with these terrorist groups in Pakistan is well understood and well known. I don't think there is anything new which we can say to that, because countries understand our position. Their concern arises when they see a military conflict emerging in South Asia because of both India and Pakistan having nuclear weapons. So the dangers of a nuclear flashpoint pushes the terrorism factor into the background, and our effort always has been to concentrate on the terrorism factor, because that is really the central issue. What we have seen over the past few weeks is a counter-terrorism operation by India, and I think the world understands that where it comes to terrorism, every country will take steps to defend its citizens and itself.
Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in his nationwide address that blood and water cannot flow together, terror and talks cannot go together. Would you agree that this can henceforth be the only correct policy for India?
I think we need to recognize the centrality of terrorism in India-Pakistan relations. But what is also very evident is that Pakistan is a neighbor and it's not going to go away anywhere. In the end, we have to deal with it and bring terrorism to the center of our engagement with Pakistan. But that does mean that you have to have some engagement with Pakistan. We cannot continue in a situation where you don't have any dealings with Pakistan yourself, and at the same time we don't want third countries also involved in what is essentially a bilateral issue. Because we are the largest power in South Asia, because we are such an important global player, countries expect us to deal with our own region, engage with our own region, and to make sure that regional issues don't become international issues. I think we have to be conscious of that sentiment and frame a long-term Pakistan policy which goes beyond the short-term and the tactical.
Now, India is working to bring Pakistan back onto the grey list of the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, the global watchdog on money laundering and terror financing. If that does happen, how do you see it will impact Pakistan?
I think it will have a bad impact on Pakistan's economy, as the last time it was grey listed. But we have to recognize that Pakistan is a large country. It's the 5th largest country in the world. It also has a certain amount of historical experience which it has built up in dealing with these international sanctions and international restrictions. In the end, many countries see Pakistan as a country which is deeply unstable, which has all kinds of internal contradictions, which have serious external impact. It sees a country where extremism and terrorism play a major role in domestic politics. And finally, it sees a country with nuclear weapons. So they don't want the prospect of Pakistan going down the tube completely. And that approach will continue to guide them, as we saw in the manner in which the latest loan for IMF was sanctioned, notwithstanding the seriousness of the terrorist attack which was carried out in India.
Okay, overall, Raghavanji, how do you see India's immense patience and forbearance towards Pakistan so far, in contrast to Pakistan's duplicity and naked support for cross-border terrorism?
I think we have shown patience, and we have made great efforts to build a cooperative and stable relationship with Pakistan. Because we are the largest country in South Asia, because we are the stable power, because we have a growing international profile, because we are a major economic force, that is a role which is forced on us and about which we have no choice. In the end, it is our responsibility to make sure that the region remains stable and there are no situations which can lead to a major escalation or a major conflict. Countries expect India to behave differently from Pakistan. It may be a somewhat onerous burden at times because of the grave provocations we are subjected to, but that is a responsibility which we cannot shirk.
Okay, on that note, let's wind up this discussion. Thank you very much, TCA Raghavanji. One hopes that Pakistan comes on the table to counter terror, and this is only where talks can start. Thank you very much for being with us on DD India Newshour. All right, let's move on now. The southwest monsoon has officially arrived in Kerala, marking its onset today. That's 24th of May 2025. That's 8 days earlier than the usual date of June the 1st. This year's early arrival makes it the earliest monsoon onset over Kerala since 2009, when it began on May 23rd. And if we look further behind, the earliest onset on record since 1975 was in the year 1990, when the monsoon arrived as early as May 19th, a full 13 days ahead of the normal schedule. With the monsoon setting in early, eyes are now on its progress across the country. The India Meteorological Department has predicted extremely heavy rainfall likely to occur at isolated places over Konkan and Goa, central Maharashtra, coastal Karnataka and south interior Karnataka and Kerala today. Meanwhile, extremely heavy rainfall is expected in two northern Kerala districts of Kannur and Kasaragod, with the IMD declaring red alert in these districts. IMD has also put 5 northern districts from Malappuram to Kasaragod on red alert for Sunday. Conditions are likely to be more favourable for advancement of monsoon in most parts of northeast India during the next 2 days. India Meteorological Department has issued yellow alert in various districts of Assam. As per report, none of the rivers are flowing above danger level in Assam, and none of the population or animals have so far been affected. In response to the flood-related risks, the Assam State Administration has activated its emergency response systems. Authorities focused on identifying vulnerable zones and ensuring that preventive measures are in place to mitigate the impact of the rainfall. Still to come on DD India Newshour. Napoli wins its second Serie A title in 3 years after edging out Inter Milan by 1 point in the final. And power partially resumes in Cannes after residents and business owners faced a citywide outage.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. when supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. On to Bangladesh now. Planning advisor Dr. Wahiduddin Mahmood has confirmed that Chief Advisor Dr. Mohammad Yunus will remain at the helm of the interim government. Speaking on Saturday, Dr. Mahmood said that Chief Advisor has not indicated any plans to resign, adding that all advisors are committed to fulfilling their responsibilities. His remarks follow a closed-door meeting of the Advisory Council held amid rising political tensions and increasing speculation about the government's stability and continuity. Thousands of people took to the streets in Panama on Friday to protest against the arrests of two trade unionists who had been leading demonstrations against the government of President Jose Raul Mulino. Two leaders of the powerful Suntrax Construction Union have been detained over the past week and are being held on money laundering charges, which they deny. On Friday, protesters marched peacefully, thronging the capital's main coastal avenue in a sea of red, white and blue Panamanian flags as police looked on. Suntrax is fighting the Panamanian government on several fronts, including the pension reforms. And next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. People lit candles at the Belgium Jewish Museum on Saturday for the victims of a shooting that killed 4 people 11 years ago in the shadow of a recent attack on 2 Israeli embassy employees in Washington. The roar of engines filled the air in Ljubljana on Saturday as Slovenia's president Nataša Pirc-Musar joined a group of women bikers for a charity ride. Red bands adorned some of the motorcycles as a reminder of the event's commitment for breast cancer awareness. Black Lives Matter protests are taking place across the US ahead of the 5-year anniversary of George Floyd's death on May 25th. His killing by a white police officer in 2020 exposed racial injustices and sparked one of the largest protest movements in US history. Demonstrators are once again rallying to demand justice and reform. And power was partially restored in Cannes on Saturday after a citywide outage disrupted the French Riviera town earlier in the day. Authorities suspect vandalism, including a possible arson attack on a substation and sabotage of a coastal electricity pylon, as the cause of more than 5-hour blackout in the city. Despite the disruption, Cannes Film Festival organizers confirmed that the show would go on, switching to an alternate power supply to ensure the closing ceremony and scheduled screenings proceeded as planned.
At all levels, it was impossible to reach people. No electricity, nothing. A total blackout. This morning, the power went out from 10 to 11 a.m. and apparently there was a fire done by a person with bad intentions at the EDF station. After that, we don't really know what happened. We were also told that a pylon was cut down further down, but I'm not sure about that either. We switched the telephones back on, but since there's no network, we have no network, so no telephone. So we are a bit in autarky.
You're watching DD India News. Time now for some sporting action. The Board of Control of Cricket in India, BCCI, has announced Shubman Gill as India's new Test captain post the retirements of Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. Meanwhile, Rishabh Pant has been officially listed as Gill's deputy. A slew of other changes have also been made across the board. Take a look.
The Board of Cricket for Control in India, the BCCI, has announced India's Test squad for the England tour. The Ajit Agarkar-led committee named Shubman Gill as the new Test captain, while wicketkeeper batter Rishabh Pant has been appointed as the new vice captain in Test cricket. Gill succeeds recently retired Rohit Sharma. Karun Nair, who last played a test match for India back in 2017, has received a call-up on the back of an impressive domestic season. Besides Karun, Sai Sudarshan has also been rewarded for his performance in the IPL. Another key component of India's bowling attack is the addition of left-arm seamer Arshdeep Singh. On Jasprit Bumrah, Ajit Agarkar said the 31-year-old was unlikely to play all 5 tests in England due to workload management, and that was a factor in him not being given the captaincy. Other than this, India will be going for the England test with 2 wicket-keepers and 4 all-rounders. Pacer Mohammad Shami and batter Shreyas Iyer were among the big names left out of the squad. Shami has not played a test match since the World Test Championship final against Australia in June 2023. Notably, Sarfaraz Khan and Harshit Rana have also been left out from the 18-man squad. At 25 years and 258 days, Gill becomes the 5th youngest cricketer to captain India in Test. His presence as the new Test captain will define the true beginning of a new era in the Indian cricket, post the retirements of Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. Sports Desk, DD India.
On to soccer updates now. Napoli wins its second Serie A title in 3 years after edging out Inter Milan by 1 point in the final on Saturday. Scott McTominay scored with an acrobatic bicycle kick before half-time, and Romelu Lukaku doubled the lead with a solo goal after the break in the decisive 2-0 home win over Cagliari. Meanwhile, Antonio Conte became the first coach to win the Italian championship with 3 different teams. Napoli midfielder McTominay dropped to the pitch in tears when the match finished. Minutes later, he was honoured as Serie A Player of the Season. The win over Cagliari made Napoli finish Serie A 1 point ahead of Inter Milan. Indian shuttler Kidambi Srikanth stormed into his first men's singles final of a BWF event in 6 years with a straight game win over Japan's Yushi Tanaka at the Malaysia Masters Super 500 badminton tournament on Saturday. This is Srikanth's first final appearance on the BWF World Tour since finishing runners-up at the 2019 India Open. A former world number 1, Srikanth currently is ranked 65 and has endured a rough patch over the past few seasons due to form and fitness issues. He will face second-seeded Chinese Li Shifeng in the summit clash on Sunday. Egyptian soccer player Mohamed Salah was named the Premier League Player of the Season on Saturday. Salah scored 28 goals and provided 18 assists to guide the Liverpool to the title, with the Arne Slot side winning it with 4 games to spare. Having also earned the award in 2017-18, Salah became only the 5th player to win it twice. The 32-year-old Egyptian is on course to win another Golden Boot for most goals in a season and is 5 strikes ahead of Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak going into the final day of the season on Sunday. Salah also won the Football's Writers Association Men's Player of the Year for the 3rd time earlier this month. A special edition of Fit India Sundays on cycling will be organised in the national capital with journalists and media by India's Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports on Sunday. Fit India Sundays on Cycle is a nationwide fitness movement launched in December 2024 by the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. A key program of the Fit India movement, the cycling event is aimed at promoting a healthier and greener India with awareness towards improving the air quality index in the national capital, besides fostering a sense of community, according to an official release. The Coast Guard has launched a rescue operation for Liberia-flagged container vessel MSC Elsa 3 after receiving a distress call from its crew on Saturday afternoon. 21 of the 24 crew members on board have been successfully rescued. 3 crew members, including the captain, chief engineer and second engineer, remain on board to facilitate planned salvage operations. And tens of thousands of supporters lined the streets of North London to welcome home Europa League winners, Tottenham Hotspur. The team held an open-top bus parade after winning their first trophy in 17 years. Tottenham defeated Manchester United 1-0 in the final in Lisbon, Supporters of all generations were delighted to see them pass by with the trophy that ensures that they will play the Champions League soccer next season. So that's all for this edition of DD India Newshour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. From all of us here in New Delhi, thank you for watching. Namaskar.